There's a common misconception that those of us who work freelance, in my case as a photographer, which I've been doing for more than 20 years, are inherently less stable and secure than those in regular full-time employment. Now that's an easy mistake to make. I don't have a regular salary, I don't have any paid holidays, any healthcare, any sick pay, and hypothetically I've no idea where the next job's coming from. Some months I earn lots of money, other months I don't earn very much, and there may be lots of reasons why people choose to go freelance, but surely security isn't one of them. Well, let me counter that notion with some of my own experiences and experiences of friends of mine. Now, as I say, I've been self-employed for a long time. I registered as self-employed back in 1998, and I was earning little bits of money for a few years before that. In that time, I've had lean years and I've had fat years. And I've had busy times and quiet times. And I've lived through some very dodgy periods. At the same time, I've got lots of friends who've done nothing but full-time employment. I've had friends who were in full-time employment, gave it up and went freelance. Some people who started freelance and went to full-time employment. Now, none of this, of course, makes me an authority on employment status. The only other job I've ever done, apart from freelancing as a photographer, was to work in the Weetabix factory. But it does, I hope, give some breadth to some of the points I want to make about stability in different types of employment. So firstly, there's the idea that being self-employed is inherently more risky because the supply of work and the flow of work is so inherently inconsistent. Well, that might be true, but let me address that idea with something that happened to me way back in 2001 and also happened to a couple of friends of mine. Now back then, I've been freelancing as an assistant for about 3 years, ever since I left college. Doing quite nicely, thank you very much, working for lots of different people, great experience. And I was starting to build up quite a few regular little photography jobs in my own right, lots of small-scale editorial commissions. Now, the week of my 24th birthday was a bank holiday week, so just 4 working days, and I landed 6 shoots in 4 days, okay? I made more money in a week than I used to make in a month as an assistant. And of course, I thought to myself, this is it. It's a sign. Absolutely made up. I'm clearly supposed to go my own way right now. And the next Monday, 2 of the 3 magazines that are going to make up most of my work folded. Well, that's not strictly true. In one case, one of the people who was commissioning me moved on and the person who replaced them simply wasn't interested in using me. But in the other case, the magazine actually closed. Now suddenly I've lost 2/3 of the work I was expecting to have. You may notice, of course, I'm still here though. So what happened? Well, basically, I tucked my tail in a little bit, cut back my overheads, and just slowly worked to build my career back up. And by my estimation, as much as you can work these things out, I think that cost me between a year and 18 months in terms of getting back to the point I was at around about my 24th birthday. Now, at about the same time, 2 friends of mine both lost their jobs. Now, both of these guys, I should point out, were in full-time, safe, secure, regular employment with, your monthly paycheck, possibly other benefits, etc., etc. One of them worked in finance, and within a couple of months, he'd found another job, and in the meantime, he got by on a little redundancy package he had, and with a bit of help from his flatmates, absolutely fine. The other guy actually lost his job having been owed 4 months' wages because the company he was working for had gone into liquidation, and when that happens, as you probably know, the banks come first and people like employees come very low down the list. Now, he did do okay, he got employment again a couple of months later and he's gone on to very, very great things, but I know it's left a little mental scar on him because he now carries at least a year's worth of money on the off chance anything like that ever happens again. Now the big difference here is when both of those people from their supposedly more secure, more stable positions lost their jobs, they lost 100%. They lost the lot. I lost 2/3, which was a big drawback, quite a kick in the teeth, and took me a while to rebuild. But I lost 2/3, probably actually a little bit less than that because I did have other smaller clients. These were just 2 of my hopefully going to be very regular clients. I was left with enough to rebuild my career. They lost everything, and in both cases they did okay, but it was 100% to nothing in a very short period of time. Whereas for me, Yep, kick in the teeth, but left me just enough to rebuild. So the main difference between those two situations comes down to the old adage about keeping all your eggs in one basket. In the case of full-time employment, that's exactly what you're doing. Everything is in one place. Freelancing allows you to spread the risk around. And that brings me on to the second part of this video, the freelance mindset. How do you set yourself up to take advantage of that unstable, unsecure flow of work and actually make it more secure and more stable than being in full-time employment? The biggest risk you'll face as a freelancer is in assuming that when things are going well, they will continue to go well. Now, this is a very easy mistake to make because it's almost human nature to assume that the current state we're in, whether that's social, political, financial, will continue indefinitely. And yet the one constant of life is that things change. Industries shift, new technology comes along and creates new trends, key people leave jobs where they would have given you work, or your own circumstances might change, meaning you can no longer do the sort of work you used to do. Now, if your work is spread across several clients, and ideally more than one market sector, you are far better placed to absorb these changes than someone with all their eggs in one basket. Stands to reason. Now, to make my point, and to emphasise just how volatile a career as long as mine has been, let's look at 3 clients of mine who, for confidentiality reasons, I'm simply going to label A, B and C, and see just how much my work has varied for them over the years. Now, I'm starting these sums in 2008, as although I'd worked for clients A and C for a longer period of time, 2008 was the first year that I worked for all 3 of these at the same time. All you're seeing is how many jobs I did for each client each year. The point here is not how many jobs in total. Client B obviously represents less work. It's the fluctuation. Look at the amount of work I shot for clients A and C over time. Now, client A has now disappeared completely, but at my peak, I was doing more than 40 shoots a year for them. Client C has swung from more than 30, back down to 10, back up to more than 40, back down to single figures, and back up to over 40 again. Let's play that sequence in one go a bit faster, just so you can really get a feel for how wide the variation is. This fluctuation is pretty fundamental, and it happens right across the board, not just in magazine photography. Never make the assumption that because you did a certain amount of work for a certain client last year, you'll get the same next year, or even what's coming next month. You just can't be sure. Now, as it happens, all 3 of these clients are or were magazines, and that accounts for some of the variation. One of these magazines only now exists in online form and doesn't commission photography anymore. Another of the magazines has had some very key personnel changes, and basically I don't work for them anymore as a consequence. And one of the magazines, although it's had some ups and downs, has made a very successful transition into online, video and digital, so it's still going strong. Now, the other important thing to recognise is that even someone who's been around as long as I have has to face this sort of thing. This is not just something that you come up against when you're just starting out. In all 3 of these cases, I had very good, and in some cases still have, very good relationships with them as clients. In the case of clients A and C, I've done more than 300 shoots for them each over the years, so I've got very, very good relationships, but that doesn't change the fact that work can come and go over a period of time. You just have to accept that's an inevitable market function of working as a freelancer. As long as you spread yourself across more than one client, and as I say, ideally more than one market sector, you should be able to ride out these fluctuations. And I'll give you one last piece of very valuable advice. The time to be looking for that new work and that new client is when you're still busy and active. It may seem like the last thing you want to do when you've got lots of work on, to go out and promote yourself, market yourself, etc. But that is definitely the position to be doing it from. When you're busy and you've got lots of stuff on, you're organising shoots, you're out all the time interacting with people, your motivation and your self-confidence are very high. That is the position at which you need to be promoting and selling yourself and thinking of the next step. If you wait until you get quiet, you'll start to get desperate. And desperation is never a good position to be negotiating from. It's not a good place to be. Plus, after a couple of quiet weeks, your self-confidence will be significantly lower and you'll be less and less inclined to do anything like self-promoting or marketing, which definitely requires a good measure of self-confidence. Above all though, if you're considering a career in something like photography where there's a very high chance you'll be self-employed or freelance, rest assured that actually the situation is probably more secure and more stable than you might at first think. As long as you accept that change is constant, you should be perfectly happy. So there you go. Hope that was helpful, insightful, or filled a void in some way. I'll be doing more little vlogs like this from time to time. Meanwhile, there's lots and lots of technical content on my channel to get your teeth stuck into. Obviously, you know how YouTube works. Hit like, subscribe, etc. And hopefully I'll see you around soon.